Hi, and welcome back to Learning the Ukulele. My name is Kendall Giles, and today we're going to take a look at learning some chords and strumming patterns. So grab your uk and let's get started. If you've been following along with the previous videos in this series, by now you should have an uk in your hand, and you should have it tuned to G, C, E, A, so that it sounds like this. At the end of the last lesson, I introduced you to the C chord, just to whet your appetite for this lesson. And note that today's material corresponds roughly to the first part of Chapter 4 in the textbook. A link for the textbook down in the description box. The C chord is the first chord that we're going to learn, and as you saw last time, it's fairly easy to play. You put your ring finger, your third finger, on the 1, 2, 3rd fret of the first string, press down, leave the other strings opened, we're not putting our fingers on the other strings, and then strum down. That is the C chord. And note that there are lots of different ways to strum on the ukulele, but for now, we're just going to use the nail of our index finger, and we're going to brush it across all of the strings. So it should make a nice sound. Now that's brushing down. That's a downstroke. You can also, using the pad of your fingertip, brush up. So we've got a downstroke and we've got an upstroke. So while the C chord is easy enough to play, before we move on to some other chords, I want to introduce a few tools that will make learning chords a lot easier in the long run. So we're going to look at some music notation. So it's going to be very important that we learn a little bit of the music notation, because that will really make our jobs a lot easier when we're trying to learn chords and when we are trying to learn songs. So right here I have 3 different ways of representing a C chord. Now I know this looks a little busy, so I'm just going to break it down. On the top here, we have a chord chart. In the middle, we have standard music notation. And on the bottom, we have something called tablature. Let's go through each of these. The orientation of the chord chart is such that you're holding the ukulele vertically. There are 4 strings on your ukulele. This is the 1st string, 2nd string, 3rd string, and 4th string. Now, if we hold down on the 3rd fret of the 1st string and leave the other 3 strings unfretted or open, then we have the C chord. This number right here is used to suggest which finger to use to fret this note. Here we have standard music notation, and we're not really going to use standard music notation too much in this video series, but I did want to show it to you in case you have, say, a piano background or know a little bit about music theory. These notes right here, if you go over to your piano and play these notes, then that is the same chord that you get from playing these notes on your ukulele. A more common way of notating guitar and ukulele music is something known as tablature. And unlike with the chord chart, which is oriented vertically, tablature, the strings are oriented horizontally. And the top string is string 1 on your ukulele, string 2, string 3, and string 4. And the numbers here are the frets to play for each of the strings. So this is telling us that the 3rd fret of the 1st string and the 2nd string unfretted, the 3rd string unfretted, and the 4th string unfretted, that is a C chord. So each of these are different ways of notating the C chord. In this video series, we're most often going to see the chord charts and tablature. Hi, I have superimposed myself on top of the music so that you can see what I'm doing on the ukulele and also see the music at the same time. So let's give this a try. Now we've got our C chord chart up here. So I've got my 3rd finger 3rd fret of the 1st string. And let's look at the tablature that we have here. There are a couple new things, and so I want to point them out. One, we see that we have 3 measures of music here. Another, instead of having the C chord chart directly above the chord that we're going to strum, we just have the name of the chord here. So that kind of cleans up and makes things a little bit neater. Typically, at the beginning of the song, you would have the chords that will be played throughout the song, and then in the measures, you would just have the name of the chord to let you know what chord to play. We have a C chord here at the start of the 1st measure. These measures are in 4/4 time. The top number means that there are 4 beats per measure, and the bottom number tells you the note that gets the unit of 1 beat. So 4 means the quarter note gets 1 beat. So each of these chords gets 1 beat. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 in that 1st measure. Another thing that's a little bit different is this tablature, but instead of having the numbers representing the strings that to be fretted, so for the C chord that would be a 3, 0, 0, 0, we just have this strum indicator with the little tail on it representing the quarter note. This also helps clean up the music and make things a little bit neater. We know that we are to play a C and we're to strum it, strum it, strum it, strum it. Now, how do we know which way to strum it, down or up? Well, that's what this half-open square here means. This is a downstroke indicator. So in this 1st measure, we're to play the C chord and we are to downstroke. So let's just give this 1st measure a try. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Downstroke 4 times. In the 2nd measure, instead of the half-open square, we've got V's. Well, that means upstroke. And hey, but there's no chord letter here. How do we know what chord to play? If there's no reason to change, then you assume that you're playing the chord that you wore from the previous measure. Since there's no additional chord letter here, we know that we're to play a C. So let's give the 2nd measure a try. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. And now for the 3rd measure. We know we're playing the C chord, and this time we're going to be playing downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Ready? Let's give it a try. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wonderful. Once you feel comfortable playing the C chord, let's learn a new chord. Now we're going to learn to play the F chord. Look at this chord chart. This chord chart tells us to place our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, our index finger on the 1st fret of the 2nd string, and we're going to leave the 1st and 3rd strings open. So let's play the F chord. Okay, let's compare that to the C chord. Remember the C chord? And back to F, C, F. Okay, that's the F chord. Now let's look at this exercise. Again, we have 3 measures, tablature, and instead of playing the C chord, I know I'm to play the F chord because there's a little F there. And in the 1st measure, we are playing downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke. So let's give just the 1st measure a try. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now let's look at the 2nd measure. That's a little bit more complicated. In addition to quarter notes, we have 1/8 notes. And you know this is an 1/8 note because it has a crossing on our tail. And these are 2 1/8 notes together. This is a quarter note, and these are 2 1/8 notes together. So let's look at the rhythm. The 1/8 notes are played twice as fast as the quarter note. So if we just count out the timing, that'd be 1, 2, and 3, 4, and. Now how are we going to play it? Downstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, downstroke, upstroke. Okay, let's give this a shot. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if you're just starting out, you don't have to go that fast. Slow the tempo down until you can play it really smooth. Let's look at the third measure. Third measure, if we count out the rhythm, that's 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Okay? How do we play it? Downstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke, upstroke, downstroke. Okay? Let's give that a try. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. Wonderful. So now you know 2 chords, C and F. As a final exercise in this lesson, let's try to learn to switch between the chords. So here at the top we have our chord charts for our 2 chords to remind us how to play them. And again, in the tablature we have 3 measures, but look at what's going on now. In the first measure, I'm going to play the first 2 notes are C chords, and then we're going to switch to an F chord. So let's give the first measure a try. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. In the second measure, we're again going to switch from C to F, and we're making it a little bit more challenging by throwing in some eighth notes. So let's give this a try. Ready? Just the second measure. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now in the third measure, we're going to alternate between C and F. Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's it for this lesson on learning the ukulele. Thanks for joining in, and I hope you learned something. If you have any questions or comments, post them down below in the comment section. And I look forward to seeing you again next time.